Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hyperconscious Podcast. Alan, what is hyperconscious?
Once you understand why something is the way that it is, now you have the power to change it. Great conversations with great people and great questions are the keys to the kingdom of unlocking your consciousness.
Every single action that you do starts as a thought. When you control the way you think, you will control the way you act, and you will control the way you live. That is hyperconscious. Ladies and gentlemen, the Hyperconscious Podcast is proudly sponsored by our friend and mentor, David Meltzer of the Playbook Podcast. He was kind enough to join us on episode 144 and 135.
Folks, it has become Kevin and I's mission in life to help you realize that the life of your dreams is right on the other side of you becoming the greatest version of yourself. Let us help you do that.
I rarely do these things twice in such a short amount of time, but you guys impress me. I believe in people that provide value and of our service. You two guys are on your way to huge fulfillment, purpose, and profitability, and I look forward to helping you both.
We appreciate that more than you know. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode where Alan and I were lucky enough to sit down with the one and only Sydney Nanberg today for episode number 223. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
We are going to do a 5-minute clinic on becoming complacent or avoiding complacency.
So before we jump into this episode, you know it's coming. I'm going to ask you to go to the hyperconsciouspodcast.com. Click on join, hashtag HyperConsciousNation. Folks, not having a dream team of like-minded, supportive individuals makes achieving goals even like 10 times more challenging. So if you're in that group, Kevin went live earlier today.
I did, yeah. I talked about how, for the first time in my life, I don't hate Mondays.
Oh,
yeah, it
powerful.
was a breakthrough.
Powerful. That means you're living the dream.
Some would say.
My friend.
Some would say.
Unless that Monday seems to be overwhelming like today.
Always.
Okay, so big news.
Yeah, I was going to say, so I want to give a shout out to Jesse. Thank you, Jesse, for suggesting to us Mass Maritime Academy because Alan and I will be speaking there sometime in November. We're not exactly sure yet. And huge shout out to Tiffany, who is working with us, who sent the emails and took care of all that. We have a next level team. We have an amazing team. Tiff and Amy are killing it.
We are absolutely blessed.
So, before we do this, as I said and have been saying, and clearly it is paying off, and we appreciate you guys so very much, if you do want to see us in person, if you have a company or a corporation or a gym or a school or your student, whatever it is, anywhere you want Alan and I to speak, we will come speak. We will meet you. We can hang out after, but it is one of our top priorities right now to spread hyperconsciousness, and when we're in the room with people, you know, we can do it a little bit better, I feel. Maybe not better. We can do it more strategically.
Yeah, definitely.
And we can see the impact, and that is the world to us.
And we'll take a selfie.
Oh, sure.
Maybe with a flex.
That's the selling point.
We'll make the memory.
We'll flex.
The other thing that I wanted to say is a shout out to David Daniel. So Dave and I worked together up in Maine when I was 19 years old, in between my freshman and sophomore year of college, and we got to know each other really well. He was my boss. And he reached out on Facebook many, many years later with the following topic suggestion, and I quote, "Becoming complacent." So we use a 5-year plan that I often have to refer back to and recollect as to why we are doing the things that we are doing. But things consistently come up, obstacles, hurdles, other people, tragedies, etc., etc. And redundancy sometimes makes it difficult to focus on specific long-term goals. So what Kevin and I are going to talk about on this 5-minute clinic is becoming complacent and how to prevent that, basically, from happening to you.
Yeah, so I think my opinion on this, and I'm going to use an example of a relationship, but I'll go quickly into my view on complacency, why it happens, and how to overcome it. When you get the girl or the guy that you've always wanted, what do you do to keep them?
Right.
I think that is a huge problem in today's society where you have somebody and then you fall into the everyday trap, into the law of familiarity, and you don't want to do the things that you did in the beginning. So for me, when I had relationships in the past, it wasn't about having an amazing relationship. It was just about having a relationship.
Right. And there's two huge differences.
They're two huge differences, because if you just want a relationship, go find somebody who is okay with anything.
Right.
Okay with settling. That complacency, when you get complacent, I think there's a couple reasons and a couple definitions.
Right. What's your definition of complacent?
Feeling that where you are is all right, maybe losing your lust for growth, maybe
Right.
losing your lust for achievement.
Right.
What about you? Is that similar?
I think it's basically resting on what is without striving to make it better.
I think so. For me, number one. So, David, was it David?
Oh yeah,
David.
Yep. Dave.
If it's a 2, a 5, or a 10-year goal, you have to break them down into smaller goals. Number one, and number two, you have to realize that a lot of people get complacent when they reach their goals.
Right.
And so if you reach your goal, then set a bigger goal. But you also have to understand that it's not the goal that makes you, it's the journey. If you're always focused on the journey and how much it is going to create you and how much you will have to be in order to accomplish it, you'll never become complacent, because if you do, you won't accomplish it. I think that's why setting the goal for me to have the most successful relationship, that means the second I get complacent, I lose that. If I'm complacent, my girlfriend will not have that, and I'll be gone. It won't work.
Right.
If I get complacent with podcasting or speaking or coaching or any of these things, this podcast will cease to exist.
Right. It's interesting because Kevin and I, before this episode, we were talking about it, and it's been a long time since he's felt complacent. And honestly, one of the things I wanted to be transparent about is I don't know if I've ever been complacent. So basically, when I was really, really young, I was 8 years old, and my mom drove me past WPI. And she said it was this incredible school. And my uncle, actually the track and field is actually named after him. He has since passed away. But at the time, my uncle was the track and field coach there. And she said, Alan, that's an incredible school, and you should go there one day. Like, really smart people go there. And she always helped me believe in myself, so I owe her the world for that. But from when I was 8 years old, my goal was to eventually go to WPI.
Yeah.
And then after that, it immediately became, I remember at WPI, I read Steve Jobs' book, by Walter Isaacson, basically, and ever since then, I wanted to change the world, really. And so my smallest goal since college was to be a Fortune 50 CEO, which, for those of you who don't know, it basically means the top 50 companies in the American economy are considered a Fortune 50. So I wanted to be a CEO of one of the largest corporations, not in America, in the world. And that was my smallest goal, which is interesting. And I think that what we talked about prior to this episode was basically this: like, when you have a huge macro goal, you're very rarely going to be complacent in the micro.
You can't.
Right.
You can't. And the example I used is when I set the goal to make 6 figures and I finally made it, that's when I became complacent. I think complacency is confusion in a lot of cases, because you get what you wanted and you don't feel any better. So you assume either A, there is something wrong with me, or B, I didn't really accomplish my goals.
I would argue that, so when you made 6 figures and you thought that would have made you happy, you got to realize that money wasn't the answer.
Yeah.
So the way in which you got the money now became worse in your mind because it wasn't worth it?
Yeah, I traded in so much to get the money that when I realized that the money didn't matter, I felt like I traded in everything for nothing.
What did you do after that?
I quit shortly after.
Okay, right. And started a podcast. So the way in which you make money
Yeah.
needs to include growth and fulfillment.
I think
Because you didn't have to grow.
no.
back then.
If you're 5, and I can understand why you might get. It might feel like it's redundant. It's mundane, doing the same things over and over and over.
Right.
I understand that. For a 2, 5, or 10-year goal. But I love the mundane at this point.
I think I had a breakthrough. I think it's because we want to do mastery.
I think
So
it
the
is.
mundane is now exciting because of what it will bring.
Yeah. Remember, so I was telling you, one of John Maxwell's books.
The 15
Yeah, but I don't remember what it was. No, I think it was something like leadership. I think it was in leadership.
Okay.
There's a growth mindset and
Right.
there's a goal mindset.
Right.
If you have a goal mindset, when I get this, I will feel this way. When you get this and you feel this way, you might become complacent.
Yeah, and you probably won't feel that good.
Right,
You'll
right.
be like, oh, is that it?
But if you have a growth mindset where
Right.
you're worried, like, how far can I take this? Not I'll stop when.
Right.
How far can I take this? If you become complacent, that's where you get to take it to. and then that's it. You don't go past that.
Yeah, if your goal. Wow,
Dave
if your
Grohl.
goal is to impact as many people as possible, it's going to require mastery, and I think that will bring more meaning to the day-to-day.
Yeah.
Because mastery requires repetition.
I can understand if you're complacent in your job. So I Googled this before just to get a background on like, okay, what do people say about complacency?
Nice.
And one of the things was how to not be complacent in the workplace. I think it's hard if you don't like your job.
It's definitely, yeah.
And if you will become complacent if you only want to get through Monday to Friday.
Unless you connect it to building a resume.
True.
Quick story. So I had a friend of mine who was making way more money than me when I was, I believe, 18 years old or maybe 19. I remember it was right before I went to iRobot for my internship. I was at iRobot, actually, at my internship, making, I think, like $21 an hour. And this person was a cook making, I think, $25 an hour. And I remember they were like really excited that they make more money than me. Again, this is when we were younger, ego-based nonsense. But I remember thinking to myself, I don't care that you make more money than me now. I'm building a resume. Like this iRobot is on my resume forever. Like, and now it's funny because the CEO of iRobot is one of my mentors,
True.
which is crazy.
Yeah.
So it all connects. But that's the thing. It's like if you're doing a job you dislike, I think that's okay as long as there's a deeper meaning in your macro.
Yeah, if you're sacrificing for something.
Right.
A lot of people are sacrificing their happiness for nothing. It's
Right.
just to pay the bills. That's fine. Like, my goal is to help you get happier doing that. But yeah, I mean, if you're doing an internship so you can get the job, and then when you get the job, you got to work your way up, and eventually you'll get that thing you want, then you'll probably never become complacent. Because
Right.
you're always, if you don't have a goal, it's easy to become complacent.
Yeah.
I think if you want to be very in shape, and that's what you pride yourself on, it's going to be hard for you to take a year out of the gym and become complacent with your workouts. And if you do become complacent, it's time to switch things up. When you become complacent in your relationship, you have to do new things.
Right.
You have to go to new places, try new things. Get intimate differently.
Set mutual goals.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. 'Cause
Exactly.
then that creates the meaning in the day-to-day. So as long as you're, like if you are in a job right now you don't like, as long as you connect in your consciousness, your hyperconsciousness,
Some would say.
that you're building your unique castle and this is one brick in that castle, I think it's going to make the suck less sucky.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, it's just if you don't have a goal, if it's not for something greater, then it's going to be hard not to become complacent because there is no opportunity cost of doing so.
Right.
There's no opportunity cost. So it's hard not to.
Before we go, because the timer went off, what's one time in your life where you became complacent, and then what did you do about it?
After I wanted to have a beautiful girlfriend. I got a beautiful girlfriend by being the greatest version of myself at that time, the greatest possible version I was capable of. And then I didn't follow through on that. Then I jumped right back into my comfort zone. When you're in your comfort zone, you're complacent.
Right.
And I lost my relationship that way. That's a good way to lose your relationship.
Yeah.
And this is my take on this too. If you are going to a job every single day that you don't like, you don't want to be there anyway. So how are you expected to not become complacent?
Right.
You're just doing enough to get by. That is complacency.
Unless you connect it to something bigger.
Right. Right. So that's another thing too. If you're not jazzed about your life, start putting things into your life that make you happy. Start putting things into your life that get you excited. Start putting things into your life that make you want to live a more purposeful, fulfilling life.
Right. The last thing I want to say here about complacency, the comfort zone Kevin just mentioned.
Yes.
Learning zone. So there's picture a target. The middle is the comfort zone. Then there's the learning zone. And then there's the panic zone. This is David Meltzer, our coach. If you're in the comfort zone, that means that you're not challenging yourself, probably because your goals aren't big enough or you're not chasing them. If you're in the panic zone, you're probably overwhelmed as hell, and you need to maybe find some comfort and get back in the learning zone. But I just wanted to bring that because I think this is super relevant. And thank you again, Dave, for the topic suggestion.
Yes, so we hope you enjoyed this. Up next, we are going to do a small talks on the word discipline, something Alan and I pride ourselves on having, but we will try not to be too hardcore.
I can't wait for that one.
Well, you don't have to wait much longer because we're going to do it right after the camera shut-offs.
Just so
Shut-offs.
Just so everyone knows, this week we're kicking it old school with less questions and more contemplative
By less
conversation.
questions, he means zero.
Zero questions. Yeah, right. And we will talk to you soon.
No. Try harder. Do better.
What do you want me to say?
I don't know. Just Jeff it.
About discipline?
No, just Jeff the outro.
Jeff the outro.
What would Jeff do?
Jeff would say, I'm looking forward to talking about discipline, which I think is basically not wanting to do it, but doing it anyway for a greater end state.
I like that.
Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed this, and we will talk to you on the next one.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.